Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for being a couple minutes late there. I was having problems getting my Teams to work. So I hope others have not had those same problems. But I wanted to welcome you to our State Fiscal Recovery Fund Working Group meeting today. Lee Lilly actually had a flight changed on him this morning, so he will not be able to join us. We are joined by our friends at Deloitte who have been working with us, and many of you from our state agencies who have had a chance to work with them already. We'll be glad to hear that they are continuing their work with us to develop our performance measures. So Andy, if you want to go to the next slide. We are going to, Deloitte's going to share with us some information about that training and those workshops. And then if we have any time left at the end, we will hold our optional office hours. Next slide, please. So as you may recall, this is NC-PRO's job, is oversight for these state fiscal recovery funds, and as well as our other funds for GEAR and ERA and homeowners assistance. And agencies are responsible for making sure you're considered prime recipients from the perspective of the federal government. So making sure you develop your goals and performance measures. I know that many of you in your attachment, I think it's A, have already thought about these and have submitted some of them. And then Deloitte is here to help us refine those goals, those performance measures, and to really help you think about it now that many of you have projects that you've had to create and probably haven't had a chance to fully figure out how that's going to work out. And so now that you've had more time to sort of implement your programs, they're here to help us and are going to come do some in-person workshops for us. So I am going to, I think we have one more. Next slide, please. So I'm going to turn it over to Tommy Clark, and he's going to introduce Brad from Deloitte.
For the past few months, NC-PRO has had the joy of working in partnership with Deloitte. That partnership was developed because of the state's desire to disperse these once-in-a-lifetime funds efficiently, effectively, and equitably. The success of these projects that you guys are going to implement will ultimately be measured in a multitude of ways by a multitude of sources. But one thing is for certain, it will include project performance and impacts on the citizens of North Carolina. What Deloitte has done, it has armed the state with a variety of tools that will eventually be provided to you to build project performance measures and track these projects. Over the months of November and December, NC-PRO and a group of pilot agencies went through a series of workshops with Deloitte to develop these tools and then use these tools on these pilot agencies and NC-PRO itself. Most of you on this call have heard from Brad and his team before, and most of you have already expressed an interest in having Deloitte come to you and show you these tools. So today, Brad and his team are back to discuss with you how they plan to deliver these tools and even to work with you in using these tools. So without any further delay, I'm going to turn it over to Brad Burke and let him introduce his team and get started.
Thank you very much, Tommy. I appreciate the introduction. And I would like to say thank you to everybody for sharing your valuable time with us. We have had a pleasure working with NC-PRO and all of the agencies on this very important work. I'd like to ask, I'm not sure if it's Ambrose or Clear, could you pull our slides up so we can jump right into this? We have been, as Tommy said, we have started this. Let's go to the, we don't need to cover here. They know what Raleigh looks like. So this is the team that is currently supporting NC-PRO and the agencies here. We're not going to go through and do individual introductions right now, but you have our pictures in the short bio there. I'm the project manager, Brad Burke, for this particular effort. But when we're doing our one-on-one sessions or virtual sessions, we'll have an opportunity to get to know you, but then also, I mean, there's over 199 participants in here. And then we'll be able to introduce ourselves in a more informal manner, and we look forward to that very much. Can we go to the next slide, please? So, as Stephanie and Tommy said, NC-PRO brought Deloitte in to support development of strategies and tools to support your execution of the programs funded with recovery resources. So far, we've been able to help and support setting strategic goals, identifying and implementation challenges to address these goals, specifically working through an initial strategic alignment lab. This was a session in person there with the NC Pro leadership and some of the agencies so that we could identify some of the common pain points and some of the opportunities for our tools and our focus to come in and help you be the most successful. We're also able to develop some performance measures through a framework and a toolbox, or toolkit rather is what we're calling it, where we're providing you some outlines and tools so that you can take your individual projects, work them through the tool, come up with your own measures and your own project management statistics going forward. We built templates to support these and to track implementation of the funding and the project support in order to be compliant. These ARPA funds and funds that are coming in for the recovery, they've got some special reporting requirements. And so a lot of this work that we're doing to come up with the metrics to support your goals and help you manage your projects are things that will be part of your folder going forward, so that when people come back later to ask, why did you make these decisions? You don't have to base it on some memory. You're going to have records of this, and you're going to have the models that you used on a consistent basis to show how you distributed and managed these funds. And then finally, what we've been working on is developing dashboards to support tracking of the ARPA funding, develop performance measures. This lends itself to communicating to all stakeholders the important work you're doing, and also to provide the transparency that does nothing but build trust in what you're doing to accomplish this important work. So as I said before, we're very excited to be able to continue this work. We look forward to working with the other agencies that we haven't met yet. And I would like to turn this over now to Chris. And before I do that, I do want to say that this slide deck, Tommy, we're going to be sending over to you and Jamela so that it can be distributed as you see fit, so that you can use this too as some further context as we work through the next month or so in our sessions and have that resource. So, but now I'd like to turn it over to Chris Jackson, who's going to talk about more of the next steps and what we're going to be working on as we help you use the tools and figure out how they can best support you as you come up with your goals and your project management. Take it away, Chris.
Thanks, Brad. And thank you everyone for being here today. Claire, if you want to hop to the next slide for us. So as Brad alluded to, what we wanted to talk a little bit about was going to be next steps and where we're going, where we are, where we're going. And so for this part of the project, as Brad mentioned, and I think Stephanie had mentioned, we've already worked with 5 agencies in the state alongside NC Pro to pilot the toolkit and trainings, enhance the materials, make updates where we got feedback, etc. And so now over the next 3 weeks, we're looking to work with the remaining 18 state agencies who have received ARPA funding to provide the toolkits to provide those trainings. So here you'll see we have a 3-step approach to this. So we're here with you today, which we didn't include on the roadmap, but our first step after today will be our MeasureUp training. So on February 16th, we're going to have a virtual training, and during that session, we're going to really cover 3 things. The first is going to be a review of North Carolina's goals for ARPA funds. The second is going to be an introduction of both our project management and our planning framework. And third is going to be an introduction or even review, for those of you that may have had experience with them before, of SMART goals, KPIs, so key performance indicators, and logic modeling. Following that, the next week afterwards, we're going to meet in person in Raleigh. Super excited to be back in North Carolina. And we're going to conduct MeasureUp workshops. So we're going to have multiple different sessions. Each agency will be invited to one, and that information will be shared with you in the coming days. And during those in-person workshops, we're going to focus on defining your agency's vision for ARPA funds, and we'll specifically ask you what you expect to see in 2026, which seems like it's tomorrow, but it's so far away and so close. And so thinking about that as a frame of reference. And so with that, we will then start to develop and talk about SMART goals and KPIs, and then we will actually work with your agency to walk through and create a specific logic model based on one of your ARPA projects. Upon completion of the workshop, that hopefully will enable you to feel comfortable developing logic models for your remaining projects. And so with that, you'll be able to utilize both the frameworks that we provide and the tools that we give you to develop KPIs and logic models for your remaining ARPA projects. Does anybody have any questions about those 3 steps in the process? Great. Claire, if you want to hop to the next slide for me. So within those 3 steps, our toolkit is really made of 5 pillars. As you can see them all listed here, we have the project management framework, project plan, SMART goals, KPIs, and logic models. So within the first 2, which will be the focus of the virtual session on the 16th, the project management framework really focuses on the logistical aspects of your projects. And so this can include project schedule, project budget, the overall estimation of efforts necessary, and the scope of the actual project. Alongside that, we've developed some pretty intuitive and useful project plan templates. And these are there for you to be able to utilize so that your actions and milestones can be tracked all the way to completion. You'll be able to better monitor budgets for each of the projects, and then also, and arguably most important, identify risks to those projects and ways to then be able to resolve those risks for your projects. So when 2026 is here, you'll be able to say you achieved and met those goals. Our in-person session is going to focus mainly on the latter 3 here with the SMART goals, KPIs, and logic model. So as many of you have probably used before, but it's always important to think about, SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals. And these really do provide a clear direction for project success, both for you as an administrating agency and for any subrecipients of dollars, any community organizations or entities, or even other local governments that you may be working with. KPIs, pretty straightforward. You probably use them in your everyday life, but each of your projects will have KPIs. And so we want to work with you to understand what those KPIs are. That'll help track that success of your projects, as well as the overall status as you go through the steps. And then lastly, and this is where I'll focus most of our in-person time together, is our logic models. And these prioritize strategic and operational goals by identifying and providing your project-specific inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and impacts. And we're actually going to focus on a little bit on logic models as an introduction on the next slide. But before we get there, I know there's a question in the chat, so I want to make sure we address that. So the virtual workshop is going to be an hour, and then the in-person workshops are anticipated to be 2.5 hours. So the schedule for those will be sent out. I'll defer to Tommy on that one when that schedule will be sent out, but we expect them to be 2.5 hours. Any other questions related to that? Okay, I think we can go ahead and dive briefly into the logic models just to give you a general overview. So here you can see, as we talked about on the previous slide, throughout the logic model, you're going to be looking at inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and impacts. And so how logic model for the framework works is that we identify overall goals and key programmatic strategic objectives intended by the program implementation. So our emphasis as a lens will be the goals of SFRF from the federal government, as well as the goals set by Governor Cooper to use the funding equitably, efficiently, and effectively. During this time, we'll outline program inputs through discussion. We will describe program activities, outputs, and intended outcomes. You'll notice this recurring theme. Every time we meet, we will emphasize what outputs and outcomes are because they are distinctly different and important to remember as we go through the logic model. So outputs they provide valuable information about the early implementation stages of a project. So one example would be the number of students enrolled in an early learning program. Conversely, outcomes provide information about whether a project is achieving its overall goals. And so an example here to go along with the number of students would be the percent of students reading on a grade level. And then ultimately, through working through the logic model, we'll identify key indicators of impact to be able to better understand the overall impacts that your project will have on the long-term impacts on communities across North Carolina. So any questions about that? We're going to spend a lot of time on them during the workshops and trainings, but I wanted to give you a quick overview here as we discuss them together. Okay. Claire, do you want to hop to the next slide for us? All right, and I think here I'm going to hand it back to Brad. Oh, you're still on mute.
I was so eloquent too. I saw another question there. If we can only do one of the in-person workshops, can we let you know the date? So each agency will be grouped. You'll only be doing one anyway. It's not like everyone will come to. The goal is to have 6 different workshops. You won't be coming to all 6 or even 2. The goal is for you to come to one and work through that. We divided it this way so that we can have 3 to 5 work units come together that are intuitively grouped together because they have, you know, maybe not the same type of mission, but it's close, so that we can provide the in-person working session to work through the tools. We've done some of these virtually, but we thought it was very important to do this in person because there would be differing priorities. And so this will allow us to have some breakout sessions and give you the one-on-one time that you may need. So as far as working around your schedule, you know, we are going to be offering up to 6 different sessions. So hopefully we'll be able to work that in. The calendar we see here, on the 16th, we will have this orientation MeasureUp training. And that's where we'll go through the logic model more in depth and the project planning and teeing things up to get ready for the next week, where we will do the MeasureUp agency workshops. And the invitation and time slots for that, our team will work with Jamila on that to ensure that the invitation goes out to the right people so that we can get you signed up as soon as possible. The one thing I would request is a Valentine's Day present from all of you. We will need you to identify a project within your scope of the recovery funds that you're working on. Now, in some cases, you might only have one. In some cases, you may have multiple projects that you're working on, but we'd like to try and narrow it down to one so that we can work through that with you in the logic model. And even if you have multiple projects, going through it once will give you those lessons on how then you can take the tool, make it your own, and then apply it to the others going forward. If you have multiple projects and you're looking at them, I would suggest one of 2 things to consider when you're trying to decide which one to propose to send to us. One, you might want to send us the hardest one. You know, it's just giving you the biggest challenge in trying to figure out coming up with your own goals or performance indicators. Or you may want to pick the one that actually crosses the most operational borders for you, or touches the most stakeholders and touches the most work units within your organization as well. So that way it gives you something to work on and think about other projects that might be narrower in scope, but you've already had an opportunity to discuss it and think about how these models might apply. So, Tommy, that was the gist of our presentation that we wanted to make today. As far as the orientation goes, we have intentionally set up the MeasureUp training and orientation to be closer to the sessions and the workshops so that the information is fresher there. But I would like to turn this back over to you to facilitate any questions or any other follow-on information that you need from us.
Okay. Thank you, Brad. Thank you very much for that. Are there any questions? I don't see any more questions in the chat. Are there any more questions that you would like to ask in person for Deloitte? Okay. Here none. Andy, can you go back to actually slide 4, please? Or 5, 4 or 5, it doesn't matter which one. All right. Like Brad said, on February 16th, there is going to be a large virtual introductory workshop that's going to be presented by Deloitte. Everyone who got a special invitation to this particular meeting will get an invitation to that virtual introductory workshop. Someone's got their hand up. Hang on just a second.
It's me, Tommy.
Jackie. Okay. Hey, Jackie.
Hey, can you go back to the previous slide where you had the agencies listed?
We'll get to that in just a second. I certainly will. We are going to talk about that.
Well, I wanted to ask because I saw DOR on there.
Okay.
And well, maybe you'll answer it, but I was just wondering, I think we're a little different than some of the other agencies, and hearing some of the stuff that was talked about today, I'm just wondering if DOR even needs to participate, and it may be something I need to talk offline with Heather.
Sure.
But with us being kind of done with most of ours,
Mhm.
I'm just wondering if we even need to participate. So it may be.
I think it would be a good learning opportunity and most definitely an opportunity for you to, once information is going to be asked of you from either NC Pro or the General Assembly or the state auditor, it could be a good, like I said, a good opportunity for you guys to come in and at least prepare some things to have ready.
Jackie, I was going to say too that this is Stephanie, that I think you are in a unique position. We did our best to assign people times and dates because we thought it would be hard, to try to do it a different way. We can work with you if you can't make it or you have another conflict. It would be best because we do have a limited time frame and a limited resource with Deloitte to do this. If people can try their best to make their time. I know that we're talking about doing some sort of beneficiary survey for your beneficiaries, the businesses for the grants. So we can talk more about that offline, but that may be something worth having a conversation about with Deloitte too.
Okay.
All right. So, like I said, on February 16th, Deloitte's going to hold the virtual introductory workshop. Everyone who got a special invitation to this particular meeting will also get an invitation to the virtual introductory workshop on the 16th. And I think if that invitation has not already gone out, it will go out within the next 24 hours. Andy, can you go back to that slide 7 now? There you go. And that's the one that you wanted to see, Jackie. On the in-person workshops, like Brad said, we did try to group each agencies together for an individual session that groups like projects together. And then we went ahead and assigned a date and a time. Those of you who are on this meeting today, you can see which groups your agency or your entity is in. Also, within the next 24 hours, everyone who has an invitation to this meeting and an invitation to the February 16th workshop will get a survey from NC Pro asking you to list your 3 participants for these workshops. We ask that you get them back to us in a week, and if you haven't gotten them back to us within a week, we will certainly touch base with you and prod you to get us those names. The reason being is those workshops will be in our conference room here in the Dobbs building, and we can have, I think, comfortably, Stephanie, 12 to 15 people, pretty comfortably, maybe a little bit more.
That's right.
And I know that some agencies won't have but one. Some agencies will only have two. So we need to get an idea of how full these workshops are going to be on each day and each time session. Brad?
Yes, Tommy, would it be possible to use that same survey to ask everyone to give us the project they would like to focus on?
I don't see why not. Is Lou on this call?
Yes, I'm here.
Lou, can we fix that survey up to include that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can add that.
Thank you.
So I think that covers everything. Today's meeting, the February 16th virtual workshop, and the week of the 21st through the 23rd in-person workshops.
Yeah, we have another comment. Heather, yes, we can work with you. We recognize that we knew some agencies would have conflicts. And again, trying to schedule this many agencies and this many people, we just did the best we could, but we'll figure it out.
Okay. And Steve, your question, when you say 3 individuals, do you mean by agency? Yes, 3 individuals per agency.
Tommy, this is Lou. That's a detail we're actually, I think we need to talk through, just based on some of how many projects some agencies have.
Mhm.
So I don't want to give a hard 3. And that's a detail we need to finalize. Yeah.
Yeah, and we had talked about that. If agencies are only sending 1 or 2 people, that could free up spots for those agencies that need more, certainly. Which is why it'll be important for you to get it back to us within a week. Any other questions? And those of you who may have problems coming to your assigned session, we will certainly work with you to see if we can work you into another session. Like I said, this is logistically, this is difficult. We understand that. We will try to make every accommodation that we can. And again, this is a great opportunity for the state agencies to come together and work on these tools like others of us have already done. Will the February 16th be recorded? Yes.
And Christy, you guys have already done your workshop. That's why there were several agencies that had very large appropriations, like $1 billion plus, or a lot of different projects that were difficult. So they've already had theirs. So you won't see DIT, Ag, Commerce, DEQ. Y'all have already had your times.
Right.
And for the question that Kathy asked about HTC and AOC, again, and even actually the other question from DNCR, I would just think, even if you have multiple different projects with different grants managers, if you have people that are working on reporting or performance together, you could think about a way to send the folks in your groups that work on reporting and performance. Unless you have a situation where you need to have all 12 grants managers come, and then we'll try to help you figure that out. We found with working even with some of the larger agencies like DHHS, I think has 20 some projects, they have 1 or 2 people that are responsible for their performance that came. Jane's on here, I see, and I think Brett's probably on here too. So they handled that part of it for a performance manager. So even if you have different grants managers, if you can think about who would really be responsible for helping you do the performance, those are the folks that you want to send to this workshop, if that helps.
And I will say, if none of these times work, we plan on doing a follow-up virtual session to try and make sure that everybody gets to see the tool and work through it that way. So it will just be, I think, to everyone's benefit if we can do it in person and we can make this schedule work.
And Greer, the answer to your question is yes, because we know we knew you, again, I wish we could say there was commonalities, but everybody has a unique circumstance. We knew that UNC Chapel Hill, y'all had your own different projects, so it's okay. Just tell us who you think needs to attend based on who you think will be developing performance measures. And we're going to try to work it out. And if we have to find a bigger space, we'll find a bigger space or get creative about breakouts or something. So we're trying to limit it because we do have limited space and we don't want to cram people all in one place, but we'll do the best we can on that. So I think it's more important to think about who needs to be there, and then we can kind of go from there.
All right. Any other questions? If not, Brad, thank you very much. Emily,
Thank you.
Chris, Ambrose, Claire, thank you
Claire.
guys very much.
Well, thank you. We will, Deloitte team, let's leave and leave the NC Pro team in their meeting to do their internal business. Thank you, everyone. We look forward to working with all of you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.